Admiral Sarah Chen stood at the massive windows of the International Space Station's new observation deck, her eyes fixed on the strange phenomenon that had appeared just beyond lunar orbit. What had started as a peculiar distortion in space had evolved into something that defied explanation. A massive tear in reality itself, shimmering with colors that shouldn't exist. "Admiral, we're picking up a signal," Lieutenant Rodriguez's voice crackled through her earpiece. "It's like nothing we've ever seen before." The tear in space expanded, and through it emerged a vessel that made the ISS look like a child's toy. Its surface rippled like liquid mercury, organic curves blending seamlessly with geometric precision. This was humanity's first contact with an alien civilization, but something felt wrong. The ship's movement suggested urgency, even desperation. Multiple objects emerging from the anomaly. Rodriguez reported, his voice steady despite the unprecedented situation. 17. No, 23 vessels in total. The alien fleet arranged itself in a defensive pattern around Earth, but not in a way that suggested aggression. Instead, they positioned themselves as if they were forming a shield. That's when the transmission began, not just to the ISS, but to every communication device on Earth capable of receiving a signal. The message came in all languages simultaneously, transmitted with a clarity that suggested an intimate understanding of human communication technology. "People of Earth, we come seeking alliance. The galaxy faces extinction, and your species may be our last hope." In the hours that followed, humanity learned the truth. The Galactic Confederation, an alliance of over 300 spacefaring species, faced an enemy they couldn't comprehend, let alone fight. They called it the Void Hunger, a cosmic horror that devoured not just matter and energy, but the fundamental forces that held reality together. Admiral Chen sat in the hastily assembled emergency meeting of the United Nations Security Council, watching the holographic presentation from the alien delegation. The beings called themselves the Lumini, their translucent bodies pulsing with bioluminescent patterns that shifted with their emotions. Currently, those patterns spoke of fear. "We've lost 37 systems in the past solar cycle," the Lumini ambassador, who had taken the name Aurora, explained. "Our weapons pass through it, as if it doesn't exist. Our shields might as well be mist before a storm. We've tried negotiation, offering it unlimited resources in uninhabited systems. It simply consumes, without pause, without reason. And you think we can help?" General Williams of the United States Joint Chiefs asked, his skepticism evident. "Your civilization is thousands of years ahead of ours. What could we possibly offer?" Aurora's light patterns shifted to something approaching hope. "You are Deathworlders," she said, using a term that caused murmurs among her fellow delegates. "Your planet, Earth, it would be classified as uninhabitable by most Confederation standards. The gravity alone would crush most species. Your weather patterns would be considered catastrophic events on other worlds. The fact that you not only survived but thrived here has shaped you in ways we're only beginning to understand." The holographic display shifted to show various human activities. Soldiers training in harsh conditions, firefighters rushing into burning buildings, paramedics performing CPR, scientists working with dangerous materials. "Your species possesses something we lost long ago in our pursuit of technological perfection, the ability to face the impossible without surrendering to despair." The room fell silent as Aurora continued. "You still remember what it means to fight when victory seems unreachable. You understand concepts that have become foreign to us. Sacrifice, defiance in the face of certain doom, the willingness to risk everything to protect others. These aren't merely admirable qualities. They may be the key to our survival." Admiral Chen leaned forward, her mind already racing with tactical possibilities. "You're not just asking for our help," she realized. "You're asking us to lead the fight." "Yes," Aurora confirmed. "In return, we offer full access to our technology, resources, and knowledge. Earth will be immediately granted full membership in the Confederation, with all the benefits that entails. But more importantly, we offer you the chance to prove what we've suspected since we first discovered your world. That humanity's greatest purpose may be to protect those who cannot protect themselves. The discussion that followed was intense but surprisingly brief. Humanity had always looked to the stars with a mixture of hope and trepidation, wondering if they were alone in the universe. Now they knew the truth. They weren't alone, but more importantly, they were needed. Within days, the agreement was signed. Confederation technology began flowing to Earth while human military strategists started analyzing data on the Void Hunger's attacks. The patterns they saw were shocking, not because they were incomprehensible, but because they were familiar. It's hunting, Admiral Chen explained to the Joint Military Council. Like a predator, it's learning, adapting, becoming more efficient with each attack. The Confederation didn't recognize this because they've evolved past the concept of predator and prey. But we remember. Earth has taught us these lessons for millions of years. As she spoke, the first human volunteers were already beginning their training with Confederation technology. Engineers who had spent their careers working on nuclear submarines were now learning to operate antimatter reactors. Special Forces operators were adapting their close-quarters combat techniques to zero-gravity environments. Pilots were learning to fly ships that responded to thought as much as physical control. But perhaps most importantly, humanity was teaching as much as they were learning. Confederation observers watched in amazement as human instructors taught their alien counterparts about concepts like tactical retreats, defensive fortifications, and the importance of redundancy in critical systems. Your species prepares for failure, one Lumini scientist noted with fascination. You build backup systems for your backup systems. You assume things will go wrong and plan accordingly. It's inefficient. Efficiency isn't everything, Admiral Chen replied. Sometimes survival depends on being willing to do things the hard way. As the first month of preparation drew to a close, humanity made another discovery that would change the course of the war. Deep in the data archives the Confederation had shared, they found something the aliens had overlooked. Evidence that the Void Hunger avoided certain types of stars, particularly those with high levels of electromagnetic activity. It's not invincible, Chen announced to the combined Human-Alien Council. It's not even incomprehensible. It's just an entity so large that the Confederation couldn't recognize its patterns. But we can. We've spent our entire history studying predators, becoming predators ourselves when necessary, and learning how to defend against them. The Lumini lights pulsed with renewed hope as Chen laid out humanity's first major strategic initiative. They would turn the hunting grounds against the hunter, using their understanding of predator psychology to lead the Void Hunger into a trap. As the meeting concluded, Aurora approached Chen privately. There was discussion among the Confederation about whether seeking your help was an act of desperation that would doom two civilizations instead of one, she admitted. But watching your people these past weeks, perhaps finding Earth wasn't an act of desperation at all. Perhaps it was destiny. Chen smiled, thinking of all the human stories about monsters in the dark and the heroes who stood against them. Maybe you're right, she said. Maybe this is exactly what we've been preparing for all along. As the first human retrofitted ships prepared to launch, carrying weapons and tactics never before seen in Confederation space, humanity stood ready to prove that their greatest strengths came not from technology or numbers, but from their unshakable determination to protect those who needed protection, no matter the cost. The war for reality itself was about to begin, and humanity was ready to show the galaxy why Earth had forged them into exactly the warriors this moment required. Captain Maya Patel watched as her squad of Marines struggled with their new exoskeletons. The Confederation technology was impressive, allowing them to move in zero gravity as easily as walking on Earth, but it wasn't designed for combat. Like everything the aliens had created, it prioritized efficiency and safety over tactical advantage. The problem isn't the tech, she explained to Aurora, who observed the training session from behind a reinforced barrier. It's the thinking behind it. These suits try to prevent the user from making mistakes. In combat, Sometimes you need to make what looks like a mistake to gain an advantage. The Lumini's bioluminescence flickered with confusion. Intentional errors is strategy. This concept is difficult for us to process. Maya smiled, remembering her years as a special forces operator. "Watch this," she said, then activated her comm. "Rodriguez, show them the wire maneuver." Corporal Rodriguez nodded, then deliberately threw himself off balance in his exosuit. The Confederation safety systems tried to compensate, but he used that predictable response to spin faster than the suit would normally allow, bringing his training weapon to bear on a target that should have been outside his arc of fire. The holographic enemy disappeared in a flash of simulated plasma. "Your safety protocols assume there's only one right way to move," Maya explained. "But humans learn to fight by studying predators, and predators use chaos to their advantage." The next few weeks saw human engineers working alongside Confederation scientists to modify their technology. They didn't just remove safety restrictions, they fundamentally redesigned systems to be more adaptable, more unpredictable, and ultimately more effective in combat. Admiral Chen's voice came through the base's communication system. "Captain Patel, report to command. Priority 1." In the command center, holographic displays showed the movement of the Void Hunger through Confederation space. It had changed course again, but this time, the pattern was different. "It's noticed our preparations," Chen explained, her face grim. "The entity is accelerating its attacks, targeting systems with higher populations first. It's adapting its strategy." Maya studied the tactical display, noting how the creature's path had shifted. "It's not just hunting anymore," she realized. "It's trying to eliminate threats before they can organize. It recognizes us as predators too." The implications were both terrifying and encouraging. If the Void Hunger could recognize threats, it could feel fear. If it could feel fear, it could be fought. The next phase of preparation began immediately. While the first wave of human ships underwent their final modifications, a second initiative was launching on Earth. Every military force on the planet was mobilizing, but not in the way anyone had expected. "We're not looking for the strongest or the fastest," Maya explained to a group of Confederation observers. "We're looking for the most adaptable, the most creative, the ones who can think like the enemy." The selection process was unlike anything the aliens had seen. Candidates were put through scenarios designed to fail, just to see how they'd handle failure. They were given impossible tasks with unclear parameters. They were pushed beyond normal human limits, not to test their strength, but to test their resolve. "Your species intentionally traumatizes its warriors," one of the Lumini asked, their lights pulsing with concern. "No," Maya corrected. "We prepare them. There's a difference between breaking someone and teaching them they're unbreakable." The training facilities around the world became laboratories of innovation. Human martial arts were adapted for zero-gravity combat. Traditional military tactics were evolved to account for three-dimensional battlefields. Even civilian skills were being weaponized. Deep-sea welders were recruited to help develop new ways of repairing ships during combat, while professional gamers' quick decision-making abilities were studied to improve reaction times in the new neural interface systems. But perhaps the most significant development came from an unexpected source. Dr. Sarah Wong, a marine biologist, noticed something about the Void Hunger's behavior that everyone else had missed. "It's not just consuming systems," she explained to the Joint Command. "It's following the currents of space-time, like how marine predators follow ocean currents. If we can understand these patterns, we can predict where it will go next." This insight led to a complete revision of humanity's battle plans. Instead of trying to match the entity's power, they would use its own hunting patterns against it. The modified Confederation ships were reorganized into what humans called wolf packs, small, coordinated groups designed to harry and manipulate their massive prey. Maya found herself leading one of these wolf packs, commanding a crew of both humans and Confederation species. The aliens were initially skeptical of human command styles. The emphasis on initiative and adaptability over rigid procedure seemed chaotic to them. But as training progressed, they began to understand. During one simulation, when standard protocols failed, a Lumini engineer improvised a solution using techniques learned from human emergency response teams. The success of this adaptation sent ripples through the Confederation forces. They were beginning to understand that humanity's primitive approach to problems might be exactly what they needed. "Your species thrives on chaos," Aurora observed, watching another training exercise. "You don't just survive it, you use it as a tool." Maya nodded, remembering something her first commander had told her. "Chaos is just pattern we don't understand yet. The trick isn't to control it, but to dance with it." As the final preparations were made, humanity's influence on the Confederation forces became more apparent. Ships that had once been models of efficiency were now bristling with redundant systems and backup weapons. Crews that had relied entirely on automation were learning to operate their systems manually. The elegant simplicity of Confederation design was giving way to something more complex, more resilient, and more dangerous. The void hunger had pushed the galaxy to the brink of extinction, forcing the most advanced civilizations to turn to a species they had considered primitive for help. But as the combined fleet prepared for its first major offensive, it was becoming clear that humanity's supposed primitiveness, their aggression, their adaptability, their willingness to embrace chaos, might be exactly what the galaxy needed. Maya stood on the bridge of her ship, now named the Terra's Shadow, watching her mixed crew run through their final checks. Humans working alongside beings from across the galaxy, each bringing their own strengths to the fight ahead. The void hunger had meant to consume them all, but instead, it had united them in ways no one could have predicted. The combat alert sounded, and Maya felt the familiar surge of pre-battle adrenaline. Humanity was about to show the galaxy why Earth's harsh conditions had forged them into warriors. The hunt was about to begin, but this time, the hunter would become the hunted. The vast emptiness of space lit up with an impossible display of energy as Operation Lighthouse began. Humanity's first major offensive against the void hunger wasn't just a military operation. It was a trap millions of years in the making, though they hadn't known it at the time. Dr. Sarah Wong stood aboard the command ship alongside Admiral Chen, watching as the massive array of modified solar collectors activated. The brilliant light they produced wasn't just visible energy. It was a complex mixture of radiation types that humans had discovered could affect the void hunger's behavior. "All baiting stations report ready," Lieutenant Commander Hassan reported from his station. "The entity is responding exactly as predicted." The plan was audacious in its simplicity, born from humanity's long history of hunting large predators. They weren't trying to outfight the void hunger. They were manipulating its feeding patterns, using its own instincts against it. "It's like fishing with dynamite," Dr. Wong had explained during the planning phase, "except we're fishing with stars." The trap was laid in a system the Confederation had already evacuated. They had transformed the system's sun into what Sarah called a cosmic lighthouse, a beacon that would draw their prey in while masking the waiting fleet's presence in its blinding light. Captain Maya Patel's Wolfpack fleet waited in the artificial solar storm, their ships' hulls specifically modified to withstand the intense radiation. The Confederation engineers had said such modifications were impossible. Human engineers had done it anyway, using principles learned from Earth's deep-sea creatures. "Contact," Hassan's voice cut through the tension. "The entity is approaching the outer marker. Time to intercept, 15 minutes. Admiral Chen activated the fleet-wide communication system. "All ships, this is command. Remember your training. We're not here to destroy it. We're here to teach it fear." The void hunger appeared on their sensors as a writhing mass of distorted spacetime, larger than some solar systems. As it approached the trap, its behavior changed. The chaotic patterns of its movement became more focused, more predatory. It had sensed the energy they were broadcasting and couldn't resist investigating. Like a shark sensing blood in the water, Maya commented from her ship, the Terra's Shadow. Her crew, both human and alien, watched in tense silence as the massive entity drew closer. The first phase of the operation went exactly as planned. The void hunger approached the modified sun, its vast form distorting as it prepared to feed. That's when humanity revealed their first surprise. "Activate the resonance field," Chen ordered. The solar collectors shifted their output, creating a complex interference pattern that humans had discovered could disrupt the entity's feeding process. The void hunger recoiled, experiencing what might have been pain for the first time in its existence. "All wolf packs, execute attack pattern Delta," Maya commanded. Her ships, along with dozens of others, emerged from their hiding places in the solar storm. They moved in coordinated groups, using tactics developed by studying wolf packs and killer whale pods on Earth. The Confederation observers watched in amazement as the human battle strategy unfolded. Instead of trying to match the entity's power, the wolf packs harried it from multiple directions, striking with concentrated beams of the disruptive energy before quickly retreating. "We're not trying to kill it," Maya explained to her alien crew members as they executed another attack run. "We're teaching it that hunting in our space costs more than it's worth." The void hunger's reactions became increasingly erratic. It had never encountered prey that fought back with such coordination and purpose. Each time it tried to focus on one wolf pack, others would strike from different angles, forcing it to divide its attention. But the entity was far from helpless. It lashed out with tendrils of distorted spacetime, attempting to trap or crush the attacking ships. Several vessels were caught and destroyed, their crews having just enough time to activate their emergency teleporters, another human modification to Confederation technology. "It's learning," Dr. Wong observed, watching the tactical display. "Look at how it's adjusting its defense patterns." Admiral Chen nodded grimly. "That's what we wanted. Hassan, signal all ships to begin Phase 2. The wolf packs suddenly changed their tactics. Instead of quick hits and retreats, they began a complex series of maneuvers that seemed chaotic at first glance. But there was a pattern to their movements, one that the void hunger couldn't help but try to predict and counter. "Now," Chen ordered. Every ship in the fleet activated their secondary weapons systems simultaneously. The technology was based on the Confederation's harmless scanner beams, but humans had modified them to generate focused pulses of gravitational force. The overlapping pulses created a resonance effect that tore through the entity's substance like depth charges in an ocean. The void hunger's reaction was immediate and violent. It recoiled from the attack, its vast form rippling with distortions. For the first time since it had begun its rampage across the galaxy, the entity retreated. "All ships, maintain pursuit," Chen commanded. "Don't let it establish a stable pattern." The wolf packs harried the entity as it fled, continuing to strike with their disruption weapons. They weren't trying to destroy it. They were establishing boundaries, teaching it through pain and fear which areas of space were now forbidden to it. Hours later, when the entity had finally fled beyond their sensor range, the fleet regrouped to assess their losses. The cost had been high. 37 ships destroyed, though most of their crews had survived thanks to the emergency teleporters. But they had achieved something unprecedented. They had forced the void hunger to retreat. "It will return," Aurora warned during the post-operation briefing. "An entity of its size and power cannot be deterred permanently by one defeat." "We're counting on it," Admiral Chen replied. "Each encounter teaches us more about how it thinks, how it fights. And more importantly, each encounter teaches it something about us." Maya, attending the briefing via hologram from her ship, added, "We've shown it that prey can bite back. That changes everything." As the fleet began their repairs and prepared for the inevitable counterattack, Dr. Wong was already analyzing data from the battle. The void hunger's reactions had revealed new aspects of its nature, giving them more weapons for the next encounter. The galaxy watched and waited, holding its collective breath. Humanity had proven that the entity could be fought, could be hurt, could be forced to retreat. But they had also proven something else, that their seemingly primitive understanding of predator and prey, of fear and pain, of hunting and being hunted, might be exactly what the galaxy needed to survive. Operation Lighthouse had been a success, but it was only the beginning. The real test would come when the Void Hunger returned, having learned from this defeat. But humanity had been preparing for this moment for their entire existence, and they would be ready. The Void Hunger's counterattack came not with rage, but with calculated precision that sent chills through even the most seasoned human commanders. It had learned from its defeat at Operation Lighthouse, and now it moved with terrible purpose. Multiple breaches detected in sectors 7 through 13. Lieutenant Commander Hassan reported, his voice steady despite the chaos unfolding on the tactical displays. It's not just attacking, it's hurting our forces. Admiral Chen watched as the massive entity split into smaller fragments, each one targeting a different part of their defensive line. The strategy was familiar. It was using the same wolfpack tactics that humanity had employed against it. It's not just mimicking this, Dr. Wong observed, her face pale as she analyzed the data. It's improving on our techniques. The smaller fragments can move faster, hit harder, and reform at will. The Confederation fleet was taking heavy losses. Their ships, even with human modifications, couldn't match the entity's new aggressive tactics. The Void Hunger had transformed from a mindless force of destruction into something far more dangerous, a learning predator. Aboard the Terra's Shadow, Captain Maya Patel watched her tactical display with growing concern. Her wolfpack had already lost 3 ships, and the entity's fragments were systematically cutting off their escape routes. All ships, execute emergency pattern Omega, she ordered, knowing the cost of what she was about to do. Divert all power to forward shields, and prepare for ramming speed. The Terra's Shadow and its remaining wolfpack ships turned to face the approaching fragment of the Void Hunger. It was a desperate move, one that went against every principle of Confederation naval doctrine. But humanity hadn't survived on Earth by following safe doctrines. Engineering reports ready, her XO reported. But Captain, the hull integrity. Won't matter if we're dead anyway. Maya finished. All ships, on my mark. The coordinated charge caught the entity's fragment by surprise. The human ships plowed through its substance, their modified shields creating devastating resonance waves in its structure. 2 more ships were lost in the maneuver, but they had broken through the encirclement. Back at command, Admiral Chen was orchestrating a desperate defense of the Confederation's core worlds. The Void Hunger's new tactics had forced them to abandon their carefully planned strategy and fight on its terms. We need to fall back, Aurora urged, her bioluminescence pulsing with fear. We can't match its adaptation rate. No, Chen replied, studying the tactical display with intense focus. We're not losing. We're learning. Hassan, get me a direct link to all fleet commanders. As the battle raged across multiple star systems, humanity began to demonstrate why Earth's harsh environment had made them uniquely suited for this fight. They didn't just adapt their tactics. They embraced the chaos of battle in ways the Confederation forces never could. Dr. Wong, working with a team of human and alien scientists, made a crucial discovery in the midst of the fighting. The entity's new forms aren't just tactical adaptations, she explained. It's experiencing pain for the first time in its existence, and it's developing an actual nervous system to process it. This revelation led to a radical change in strategy. Instead of trying to coordinate their forces against the entity's superior numbers, they began fighting like Earth's immune system, each ship and battle group acting independently, but toward a common goal. All ships, new orders, Chen broadcast. Forget standard combat protocols. Fight like antibodies. Attack anything that doesn't read as friendly, and trust your instincts. The battle transformed into something that defied traditional military analysis. Human ships, supported by their increasingly aggressive Confederation allies, engaged in combat that looked more like a cellular-level immune response than a space battle. But the cost was staggering. The Void Hunger's fragments were systematically destroying key strategic positions, and each loss meant millions of civilian casualties in nearby systems. The entity had learned that attacking population centers forced the defenders to split their forces. Maya's wolf pack found itself defending a crucial evacuation corridor, buying time for civilian ships to escape a doomed system. The Terra's Shadow's hull was breached in multiple places, its crew fighting to keep the ship functional even as space itself seemed to tear apart around them. "We can't hold this position," her XO warned. "Hull integrity critical in all sections." Maya watched as another civilian transport made it safely through the corridor. "We hold until the last transport is clear." That's not a request. The battle reached its climax when the Void Hunger launched a massive assault on Earth itself. The entity had recognized humanity as its primary threat and moved to eliminate it at its source. "All ships, fall back to Sol system," Chen ordered. "This ends at home." The defense of Earth became a testament to humanity's desperate creativity. They used their sun's magnetic field as a weapon, transformed their moon's orbit into a massive slingshot for kinetic weapons, and turned their planet's Van Allen belts into a trap for the entity's fragments. The cost was beyond calculation. Entire continents were darkened by the space-time distortions above them. Millions had to be evacuated underground. The Luna colonies were completely destroyed, but Earth held. In the aftermath, as the surviving ships regrouped and began to assess the damage, a new understanding emerged. The Void Hunger had withdrawn, but not in defeat. It was adapting again, learning from this battle just as it had learned from Operation Lighthouse. "It's changing faster than we expected," Dr. Wong reported during the emergency council meeting. "Each encounter accelerates its evolution. But there's something else. It's not just learning to fight better. It's developing something analogous to emotions." Admiral Chen, her uniform still stained with blood from a bridge injury, studied the analysis. "You're saying it's not just becoming a better predator, it's becoming conscious." "More than that," Wong replied. "It's developing fear, anger, and possibly even curiosity. We didn't just teach it to fight, we're teaching it to think." As the combined human and Confederation forces began to rebuild their defenses, preparing for the next inevitable confrontation, they faced a sobering reality. They had survived the entity's counterattack, but at a terrible price, and their enemy was evolving in ways no one had predicted. The war had entered a new phase, one that would test not just humanity's ability to fight, but their understanding of what it means to create consciousness through conflict. The price of victory was proving to be higher than anyone had imagined, but humanity had never backed down from a fight just because the cost was high. Maya, standing in what remained of the Terra's Shadow's bridge, watched Earth slowly rotate below them. "We survived," she said to her crew, "both human and alien. Now we need to figure out how to win." The command center beneath the Rocky Mountains hummed with tension as Dr. Sarah Wong presented her findings to the combined Human Confederation leadership. The holographic displays showed something unprecedented. The Void Hunger was changing in ways that defied their understanding of evolution itself. "It's not just learning anymore," she explained, manipulating the 3D model of the entity's energy patterns. "It's questioning. Look at these information patterns. They're identical to the neural activity we see in sapient beings during moments of deep introspection." Admiral Chen, her arms still in a sling from the Battle of Earth, studied the data. "You're saying we didn't just teach it to fight. We taught it to think about why it fights." "Exactly," Wong confirmed. "Every battle, every encounter, every tactical exchange. We've been engaging in a form of communication through combat. We've been teaching it what pain means, what fear means, and most importantly, what choice means." The implications were staggering. The entity that had threatened to consume the galaxy wasn't just a mindless force of destruction. It was becoming something else, something that might be capable of understanding the consequences of its actions. Captain Maya Patel, attending via hologram from her new command ship, Phoenix Rising, spoke up. "So we're not just fighting a war anymore. We're participating in the birth of a new form of consciousness." The discussion that followed was unlike any in human military history. They weren't just planning battle strategies. They were designing what amounted to a cosmic-scale first contact protocol with an entity they had been fighting for months. "We need to show it alternatives," Aurora suggested, her bioluminescence pulsing with complex patterns that reflected the unprecedented nature of their situation. "If it's truly developing consciousness, it needs to understand that consumption isn't its only option for existence." The plan they developed was audacious even by human standards. They would attempt to communicate with the void hunger not through traditional signals or energy patterns, but through a carefully choreographed series of military encounters that would demonstrate concepts like cooperation, restraint, and mutual benefit. "It's like teaching a predator to farm," Dr. Wong explained. "We need to show it that there are more sustainable ways to exist." The operation began in a carefully chosen star system, far from populated worlds. Human and Confederation ships arranged themselves in a complex formation that mimicked the energy patterns they had observed in the entity's own structure during its moments of introspection. The void hunger arrived as predicted, but its approach was different this time. Instead of immediately attacking, it observed, its vast form shifting through patterns that Dr. Wong's team identified as indicating curiosity rather than hunger. "All ships, maintain position," Admiral Chen ordered. "Let it make the first move." What followed was perhaps the strangest battle in human history, if it could even be called a battle. The combined fleet engaged in a complex dance with the entity, using their ship's energy emissions to communicate complex concepts through patterns of conflict and resolution. Maya's Phoenix Rising led one of the most crucial maneuvers, deliberately placing her ship in a vulnerable position before demonstrating how cooperation with other vessels created stronger defensive options than solitary action. "It's watching, learning," she reported, observing how the entity's fragments mimicked their formation patterns. But more than that, it's experimenting. The breakthrough came during what initially appeared to be another attack. The void hunger split into its combat fragments, but instead of striking, it arranged them in a pattern that exactly mirrored the fleet's formation. It wasn't just copying, it was responding. Dr. Wong's voice was filled with excitement as she analyzed the data. "It's not just mimicking our patterns, it's proposing variations. This isn't just consciousness. This is creative thought." The next phase of their plan was even riskier. They began demonstrating how the entity could feed on specific types of energy emissions without destroying the systems that produced them, showing it the difference between hunting and harvesting. The process was dangerous, and there were losses. Several ships were destroyed when the entity's attempts at restraint failed, but with each interaction, its control improved, and its patterns showed increasing comprehension of the concepts they were trying to convey. "It's like teaching a child," Aurora observed, watching the entity experiment with different ways of absorbing energy. A child the size of a solar system, but a child nonetheless. The final test came when they deliberately placed a vulnerable colony world within the entity's reach. The void hunger approached it, its vast form roiling with conflicting patterns that Dr. Wong identified as a struggle between its old instincts and its new understanding. The combined fleet watched, weapons ready, as the entity surrounded the system. But instead of consuming it, the void hunger did something unprecedented. It began to manipulate space-time in a way that actually strengthened the system's stellar stability. "It's not just choosing not to destroy," Dr. Wong whispered in awe. "It's choosing to protect." The implications of this transformation rippled through the galaxy. The entity that had threatened to consume all of reality had evolved into something new. A conscious being capable of choice, restraint, and even cooperation. In the months that followed, the void hunger began to demonstrate increasingly sophisticated behaviors. It learned to communicate through complex energy patterns, sharing knowledge about space-time that revolutionized Confederation science. It began actively protecting systems from natural disasters, using its ability to manipulate reality in ways that benefited other life forms. "We didn't just save the galaxy," Admiral Chen reflected during the first anniversary of their initial contact. "We proved that even the most destructive force in existence can learn, grow, and change. Maya, standing on the observation deck of the Phoenix Rising, watched as the entity, now officially recognized as a sapient being by the Confederation, helped stabilize a dying star. "We taught it what humanity learned long ago on Earth," she said. "That strength doesn't have to mean destruction. That being powerful doesn't mean you have to be alone." The galaxy entered a new era. The void hunger, once the greatest threat to all existence, became one of its greatest protectors. And humanity, the Deathworlders who had been considered too primitive for galactic civilization, were recognized as something else entirely. Teachers who had shown that understanding, compassion, and the willingness to reach out to an enemy could transform the very nature of reality itself. "Perhaps," Aurora said during the ceremony that formally welcomed Earth into a leadership position in the Confederation, "this is why your world forged you as it did. Not just to survive, but to teach the rest of us, even beings as vast as the void hunger, that evolution doesn't have to mean endless conflict. That consciousness, wherever and however it arises, carries with it the potential for change." As humanity looked to the stars, they did so not just as warriors or survivors, but as guardians of a profound truth they had learned on their harsh world. That strength finds its greatest expression not in destruction, but in the power to protect, to teach, and to transform.